Today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With the beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone from adults to teens and even children can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com. Again, that's csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations about faith, culture, and society. I'm your host, Chris Fuller.
And I'm Marc Hyde.
And on today's episode, we're going to be asking the question, is God still there when we're anxious and dealing with depression? Is he not? I don't know. We're going to find out. What do you think, Mark?
I'm ready to find out myself.
All right, let's go.
Let's go.
Man, that's a bop.
Dude, I love our intro music, man.
We've been doing it for a while, but every time it's like, all right.
I mean, we had Paradise was our first intro, right?
Paradise from Paul Lindgren, and then we had Joy,
which that was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
But
Yeah.
this is fun.
And then this one. And I don't even remember what it's called, but it's just...
I don't know. But the thing
It's
I
got a
like about it
groove
is
to it.
we've gotten it down to a point where we always fade it out right at that little baseline intro.
It's so easy to find the cues now.
It's so easy to find the cues.
I don't know if we'll change from this for a while. Maybe. I don't know, but I like it right now.
I like it. Do you like it, listener? I hope you like it, listener. Either way, welcome back, Fuller. Welcome back, podcast fam. We're glad you're here again.
We are glad.
If you are new to the podcast, we are so thankful that you found us. Let us know how you found us. Go to Instagram, Facebook, Real Talk Christian Podcast, pretty much everywhere. RealTalkChristianPodcast.com, RealTalkChristianPodcast@gmail.com, Real Talk Christian Podcast, Instagram, Facebook,
Just
Twitter,
type in Real Talk
YouTube,
Christian Podcast and you'll find us.
all the places, because we want to know that you found us and that you listen and that you were able to just hang out with us for a little bit.
And honestly, we care about you and we want to hear back from you and get your thoughts on the episode and continue the conversation. We always encourage people to reach out so we can continue the conversations on each episode and episodes past. It doesn't matter. So.
Speaking of continuing conversations, tell you what, man, we have some of the most random conversations between episodes.
We're everywhere.
Because we always do 2 episodes at a time.
Well, it's okay. So you got here at 6:05-ish, right?
Yeah, 6:06.
Well, it says,
Did you see that I shared my ETA
I did,
with you?
and I tracked your driving the entire time.
I figured
it was awesome. It was
like, I was driving, I'm like,
there he is.
I'm like, I'm like 6 minutes late.
He just turned down Cedar. Yeah, so I did. I saw that. I liked it. But so you got here at like 6:05, 6:06.
Yep. And we always chat with Janelle. We hang out for a little bit with the kids.
We chatted till we started podcasting about 7 o'clock, somewhere around there. Got done about 8:05, 8:10 with the first episode because we always batch record at least 2 episodes every time we get together.
Yep.
And then now we've been just chit chatting since like 8:10 to it's now currently 9:30 at night, and we're like, we already
drank
start.
our cup of coffee.
We were chatting and just lost track of everything and just drank our coffee. So we're not going to be drinking coffee on this episode, but we are going to talk about the coffee.
That's a lie because I still have some.
Oh, I have none.
Question, what is this mug? Okay, so the mug I'm using is a Buzz Lightyear mug.
So that actually came from the Disney store, and it's different.
Can we talk about the fact that our mall is pathetic now?
And you know what?
We don't have the
I
Disney
have
store.
not been to the mall since the loss of the Disney store.
I think
just
I've
have no
been
desire to go there.
2 or 3 times. One was just because I had just Evie or something like that, so I was just walking and pushing when she was still a baby. The other reason why is because I had to go to the Apple store. Oh, yeah, I had to go to the Apple store to have them look at my watch. Then the third one was I went to Flat Top for dinner.
You know what?
You know?
I lied. So I just went to Barnes & Noble's a couple weeks or a month
But
ago.
that's that awkward thing. Well, if people aren't from here, we have like the mall, and then they put a strip mall on the mall.
In front of the mall.
So like
attached to the mall.
Barnes & Noble, you can go into the mall, but then there's a whole strip of restaurants and shops where you go in from the outside, like a strip mall.
Right.
But you can't get into the actual mall from
Exactly,
those shops.
yeah. So it's just, it's one of those weird things. But yeah, I did go to Barnes & Noble's a couple months back. And
What book did you get?
I didn't get a book. We were looking for, I was trying to find puzzles. I like the little puzzles that you got to figure out.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I've got several of them where
did
like the
not
puzzle
know that. Are you
boxes and stuff
kidding?
like that. I do them all the time. I love
You've never.
them.
I don't think we have ever talked about that on this show or in our relationship.
No, yeah, probably not.
Why wasn't that a dating question from last episode?
Because it didn't come up on the phone on the party cues.
But so legitimately though.
So I like to solve puzzles.
like those Chinese puzzles.
yeah,
and
the different puzzles. I also like to Janelle and I like to get like the unsolved case files, like the murder mystery case
Shut
files,
up,
and we like
really?
to solve those. Yep. So we actually got one we got to do. We haven't done.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can buy them on Amazon for like $20, and they send you all this evidence. You got to figure out who the killer is.
So it's basically like the game Clue.
It's Clue on steroids.
On steroids
so
for
the,
adults.
The last time we had, I think it was like 50 pieces of evidence we had to go through, like newspapers and just different pictures and just different things. And we had to solve the killer. And when you find the killer out, you go to the website and you put who you think the killer is, and then you hit enter, and they tell you whether you got it right or not. And it took us about 2.5 hours to figure it out. And it was awesome. It was a great in-house date night after the kids went to bed. It was great.
I like to play hand and foot.
What?
Hand and foot with playing cards? You never heard of hand and foot? Okay, let me just ask you this. Do you know what euchre is at least?
Yes.
Okay, you know how many people outside of Indiana know anything about euchre?
Well, that's because
The answer is no.
It's a Midwestern.
It's a Midwestern game. So Beth doesn't know about euchre, though, because she grew up south of Indy.
Yeah.
And then Knoxville, she was like, what's euchre? I'm like, oh, girl, we got to play some euchre. But you need other people to play
Wait,
euchre.
you ever played the crazy game?
The crazy game? Or crazy eights?
No,
or crazy game?
The crazy game with cards. It's very similar to euchre.
Okay.
It's similar, but it's not. It's an Ohioan thing.
Ohioan.
I learned from Janelle's parents. They their family taught us this. It's called the crazy game. That's what it's called.
I've never heard of it.
And they've got like a whole sheet of all the rules and stuff. And yeah, it's weird. It's an awesome, fun game.
Yeah, Beth's family. I'm going to look that one up because Beth's family is obsessed with card games, not board games, but card games. So we do a lot of
Rummy. Did you play Rummy ever?
I did with Dandy Randy.
I love.
No, that was Michigan Rummy, where it's like 3 different games in one.
No, I'm playing like Rummy 500.
Okay, I think
Rummy.
Beth's family does that, but we did a lot of hand and foot. We did a lot of books and runs, but you play that with rook cards.
Right.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Sure.
And then just, classic rook. But with her family, man, we'll play books and runs or hand and foot a lot.
Yeah.
So cool. Hand and foot is kind of like, did you ever play spades?
Yep.
Or hearts?
Yep.
It's kind of the same. It's not for people who are, it's you're trying to basically collect books in front of you, and those are points and whatever. But either way, so yeah, they're a big time card game. So yeah. So we don't do murder mysteries. We do a lot like Ticket to Ride and books and runs and
Ticket to Ride. That's like a board game.
That is a board. We do but
that's a lot
Beth
of
does
fun.
board game, but Ticket to Ride.
I love board games.
For Easter, we actually bought the kids the junior version.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna get them that, and we also bought Clue Junior.
So I used to
For
get
the
together
kids, so we can play
in
board games with them.
our old.
So I should say
small-
Beth loves board games, and her sister does too. But the Schneider family is a card game.
Did you ever play Settlers of Catan? Or Carcassonne?
So Carcassonne, I introduced that to Beth because that's one of my favorites.
I have Carcassonne on my phone.
Yeah,
I play the digital version all the time.
So as a pass between peers, so back at Northland, I was working full-time, full-time hours, full-time student.
Right.
Was a newlywed. I mean, I was busy. So what I would do is intentionally leave my office 5 to 10 minutes early, get to my next class right after lunch, and I knew no one was going to be in there for 10 minutes. So I would play a round of Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne or Settlers before class.
Yes.
On my iPad.
Yes.
And that was 2011. No, that's 2012.
But let me
2013.
ask you a very important question, which could make or break our friendship.
But I do love Settlers of Catan. That's one of my favorite ones to play. But no one wants to play it with me. No one wants to play it
I'll
with me.
play it with you. But let me ask you an important question that's imperative to whether our friendship will last.
Yes, I do love you.
What about, do you play Risk?
I thoroughly enjoy Risk. I love Risk, except I can't really play a game more than 2.5 to 3 hours.
That's how I am. It's like if it's not over within like 3 hours, it's like,
so. You
all
know
right,
what would
let's
be
just call
fun
it.
for us to do?
Let's have a double date night with Risk.
Well,
How about-
obviously, no, but Risk Junior. It sounds. Hear me out, people.
Because it goes quicker.
Risk Junior is the exact same game as Risk, same play. It's just instead of all these countries, it's basically like 8. It's not really 8 continents because it splits some things up in half or
Right.
whatever, you
Yep.
know. But literally, it's the exact same game of Risk, but shorter. So you can play
All right.
one game in like 45 minutes.
So let's talk about
amazing.
Let's quickly, because we're already at 10 minutes. Let's quickly talk about your strategy on Risk. What is like the main thing that you always try to get?
Go fast and hard.
Go fast and hard where? Any strategic place?
Dude, so you're gonna love me for this. I haven't played Risk in years. I mean, we're talking like early college.
All right. So I haven't played probably
I used to go
college.
for Australia. I think Australia was always my strategy.
Australia, and you only have a couple guys, and then you load up on Siam, the entry into Australia. So that's your strong front. Because as long as you hold that country, they can't get into Australia to take any of those countries. So you constantly keep one guy on all of Australia, so you keep getting the extra guys, and you throw all your battalions onto Siam.
So check this out. Okay, so here this will go into Texas Hold'em poker too, right?
Okay.
So is your strategy more of defense or on the attack? For your typical strategy for games, are you normally more aggressive or more reserved?
It depends on who I play.
Okay. No, but how about because Settlers of Catan, you have to go aggressive or you're going to lose.
Same with Carcassonne.
Right, you have to go aggressive.
You got to go
with farmers. You got to go aggressive with farmers.
Right. Yep.
But like, okay, so what I mean is like in Texas Hold'em,
yeah,
I am a very passive player, so I normally am always in the last few people.
I'm passive to an extent,
and then I go.
But the
euchre, I can't.
But passivity, what it gets me is when I need to bluff. I can bluff because they're like, well, he's been playing pretty conservative this whole time, so he's got to have something, and I can usually take.
So I've had to learn about what games, for lack of a better, like euchre, you got to be ballsy to win. Yeah. You have to be, or else you're going to lose.
Sure.
But with Risk, like when I say go hard and go fast, that's what I mean. Like I take over a couple countries and then just hang out.
See,
what's nice
I'm
about
pretty
Risk,
passive.
Risk Junior, you cannot. You either go or you lose. So it's so I don't know. I played it with my little cousin years ago, and that's what he was obsessed with. So I'm like, let's play. I'm like, fine, whatever. You know, we'll appease you because I'm basically the same age as if he was my nephew type thing. Right. And we played once, and I'm like, can we play again? Yeah. Can we play again? Right. Can we play again? This is amazing. So I'm hoping that's what's going to be the case with Ticket to Ride Junior.
There you go.
Clue Junior, my mom is obsessed with board games. We grew up playing games every single day. Monopoly Junior. She loved Payday, so we played Payday.
Oh, yeah. I love Payday.
But I learned how to count money with Monopoly. But we played Monopoly Junior. We had Life, all the versions. My favorite was Twist and Turns because you chose what path you wanted to go, and it was all digital, so you have to count anything. But
yeah, I mean, we like playing board games all growing up too, and then Janelle and I love playing board games until we started having kids, and like, okay, when are we gonna have time? And even once in a while now, when the kids go to bed, we still play board games, but not as often as we used to when we were first married or dating or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I need to do better as a husband about doing this, but there's a time where it's all based on the season and what we're doing.
Sure.
Like right now, we're working on repainting the kitchen cabinet, so that's our free time.
So yeah, when you got free time at night, you're doing stuff.
But tell you what, man, there's nothing better than just hanging out with Beth, playing a board game, cards, got a glass of wine, and you're just having a good time.
But
together,
I like, me and Janelle love to put together puzzles. We used to put together puzzles all the time. So much fun.
Beth is obsessed with this puzzle app on her iPad.
Oh,
she does it every night. I'm not a big puzzle guy. This is going to sound funny. It hurts my back. It really hurts my back to do puzzles.
Well, you got to get a comfortable chair.
Well, I know, but it's more the fact of I sit all day anyway, so I don't really like to sit unless I'm in the bed because then I can recline a little bit. But I'm not a big puzzle guy. I'm really not.
See, I love puzzles. But anyways, we should probably move on since we've had a 14-minute banter going on, or 13 minutes.
We should. So long story short, we have coffee. We finished it. It's the same stuff we drank last episode, right? The Nicaraguan from Sabrina up in Canada.
Correct.
Sabrina, this stuff's amazing.
It's good. And actually, this is the last of it. This is like the last of the coffee from her. So
actually, you know what? I haven't messaged her yet. I got to tell you this. Did you know that Sabrina found our show because of Beth?
Really?
She followed Beth, and then Beth was on our show. And then, Beth married one of the guys on the show, and Sabrina's now a lifelong fan. So in that Christmas card, your boy got like a sentence. Beth got a book.
So
our Christmas card.
I cracked up at the fact of Beth's story today that she put out. Did you watch her story today?
Which one? About the poop toys?
No, the one where she's all like, I'm trying to get some stuff done. And so if you give me send me some suggestions on some, I really like podcasts. I mean, I went on a podcast and married a guy from a podcast. So, and I'm like, I started dying laughing.
Story,
I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, Beth.
She is, okay, she's trying real hard to make sure her episodes are the top episodes.
Oh, that's
100%.
I'm fine with that. I don't care.
100%. But either way, so, all we got to say is we're drinking the Nicaraguan from the one I don't remember what the coffee shop name is from up there in Canada land.
It was the one with the goose. I remember that.
One with the goose. But Sabrina,
with the Canadian
thank
goose.
you for that. And if you, podcast listener, want to send us coffee, we'll talk about it on the show. Feel free to send us a message.
We'll tell you where to send it.
We'll tell you where to send it.
Or you can just look up our business address and send it there.
That's true. Or you can just go to brewitforwardcoffeeco.com and get some of your coffee and use that coupon code RTC for 10% off. And we haven't said this in a while, but we said this before. We get no sponsorship money from this coffee company intentionally because we want to come alongside another agency that's helping support foster kids and adoption and all these different things. It's a beautiful thing. We don't want to take any of their money. We want the proceeds to go back to them. And all we do is talk about the coffee on the show.
That's all.
And right now, we're currently out of Brew It For Coffee, so we're waiting for our next bags, Jared.
Yes, we are.
We are awaiting.
I am itching.
And that's not a slam. That's more just we're literally just waiting.
It's just such good coffee that
we drink it too fast at our house.
We drink
it way too fast.
We do too. So, anyways, let's move on to the party cues real fast.
Let's do it.
Let's do 2 party cues, and then we'll move on to the review, and then jump into the episode.
Because if you're new, we do this every episode where we want you guys to get to know us a little bit.
We started it.
We ask you guys to let us know who you are, and we want this to be a fun relationship.
Yeah, we want you guys to know who we are, and so we've been doing this for probably 50 or 60 or 70 or episodes.
Oh, I think about say years. I'm like, dang, bro.
No, lots of episodes. So.
Lots of episodes.
So, anyways, all right. So, Mark picked out the category today is work from home. Does remote work have downsides? You can answer this one because I don't work.
My job is work from home. I work from home.
Right.
I'm my own business.
Right.
MarkHyde.com if you need any website needs. But other downsides? Yes. If you, I don't know. For me, I am doing much better working from home with Beth being home because I don't feel like I'm always alone. I think that's probably the big thing is the fact of always being stuck alone or whatnot. But the perk is I can get more jobs. I can work less hours and have the same productivity as if I was in an office place because I don't have as much water cooler time or like distraction time or anything like that. Like, when I was at the church, Sosha and I would talk about an hour every day or longer. Right. And it wasn't bad conversations.
Sure.
But it was more of like, this is focused in time. So I guess I'll say working from home, my relationships, I feel, have suffered in some regards and my social inkling. So whenever I get a lot of social interaction, Beth is like, wow, you just had a whole big, massive people sugar rush there, didn't you, boss? Because I'm just too hyper. And I don't go to sleep when I'm around people.
I'll attest to that. You do kind of like like a shotgun and a machine gun put together, people, like a lot of information really fast.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
Though. That's why we love you.
Do we have another good question? Right. That was. So, do we need to switch categories?
Because, so I did.
Okay.
I did because the next one was another question. It's like what current project are you working on? I'm like, I don't have nothing. I don't work from home. So this one's called How Many?
How many?
How many? How many tweets have you actually had a significant impact on you? How many tweets have actually had a significant impact on you?
I don't do Twitter.
I don't either. I do for the podcast, but
I don't do Twitter.
All right, let's move on to another one. How many times have you received over $10,000 at once? I can honestly say twice I've had it. Both times I sold my house.
I'll say like the only time I have when I sold my house. That's the only time.
Both times I sold my house, I had it, and then it was gone in the next house. So
yep, my house. That's about it. Well, those questions were not very great, but we had a lot of other interesting conversations to get to know about board games and card games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think they learned a lot.
They sure did.
So, anyways, let's.
Before we continue, though, we got one last thing.
We gotta read the review.
Right. So, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, which honestly, our Spotify community is growing like crazy.
I think 78% of our listens happen on Spotify.
Is it that high?
I think it's that high.
Okay, so let me go to Spotify real quick and just apparently if you
while you're going there, if you're listening on Spotify, thank you. Go ahead and leave us a rating, and then we
have 71 ratings on Spotify. Spotify's about to overtake Apple Podcasts.
And then jump over to Apple iPod. Wow.
Apple
Podcast. And leave us a review because those reviews help us and the algorithms get us into the ears of other listeners. That's right. As part of our RTC family, we need your help.
It's true. So check this out. We have 73 reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts, 71 on Spotify.
Wow.
So Spotify is catching up.
Yep.
So thank you for doing that for us. But this review comes from Michaela J. Rios, and it says, thought-provoking and challenging. My husband showed me this podcast, and we have been binging all the episodes. Many of these questions we have had ourselves, and we love hearing the different perspectives Mark and Chris dive into. You spelled my name right. She spelled it with a C. This has challenged and encouraged us to dive deeper into the Word and open up more of these discussions within our own marriage. It has also helped us question the set perspectives and opinions we do have and challenge if there's any truth in those opinions. Thank you for the podcast. Keep it up. All the love from Houston, Texas, baby.
Whoop, whoop, Longhorns.
No, it's Hook'em Horns.
Well, whatever.
But
They're the Texas
yeah, but
Longhorns.
you got to hook them. My dad grew up Texas, so we hook 'em horns.
Okay.
As a kid, I always thought it was this, but
No.
that's hang loose.
That's hang loose or I love you or whatever.
I don't know. Go Irish.
Oh, no, there you go. Cheer, cheer.
But either way,
for
Michaela,
Notre
we
Dame.
appreciate you. Just like always, if you leave us a review, hit us up so we can send you a mini swag bag because we're working on making them a little better.
We are. Well, hopefully
better.
by the time this podcast airs, this episode,
It'd be dope.
maybe it'll be done.
It'd be dope.
So you should reach out because you might get the special. I don't know.
And here's the deal. We have a lot of people who leave us comments over on YouTube. We have
Sure.
a lot of people who message us.
Right.
If you just message us and you're like, hey, I would love to support the show. Can I have a mini swag bag? Is that cool for people to reach out to?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because we want to send you stickers and pins and all the fun things.
Yeah, pins not like pens, but pins.
That'd be cool though too.
Well, eventually maybe we'll get there, but we haven't made it there yet.
At the end of the day, we would love to. We don't. Okay, a lot of podcasts. You go to their show, they sell stickers. We don't want to sell stickers. We just want to mail them to.
I mean, on our new shop, they're going to be for sale, but you can buy them or you can just ask us and we'll send them.
And even if you say, hey, I just want stickers, I don't want the other stuff, dude, we'll just slap it in a thank you card and send it your way.
Just send it on.
We just want to let you guys spread the love, and we want to spread the love to you guys too.
We honestly, there's no way we would be able to reach the community that we have, including you guys, if it wasn't for you guys sharing the podcast. And so this isn't our podcast, this is your podcast. So if you want other people, if you're encouraged by this podcast, or even if we're just provoking new thoughts of, hey, I never thought about this before, it's challenging my opinion, even though I may stick to my opinion and disagree with these guys. If it's ever done that for you, share that with other people.
Yeah, definitely.
Share it on your social media accounts, whatever. That's the only way that this podcast will grow. And not only that, but our community and our family will grow.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Honestly, one of these days I'd like to get like a forum going of just RTC where like all of our listeners
like
can
a Facebook group?
Yeah, like all of our listeners can interact. And
Let us
that'd be
know
cool.
if you'd be. Hey, if you guys want a Facebook group, we can make one. It's easy enough to do
that.
It's easy enough.
Let us know if we get 2 people that say they want it. We're going to do it.
2 people?
2 people.
Not including you and me, but two people.
Two people other than us.
Okay.
We'll
I
do
like it. But you got to let us know.
You got to let us know, though. 2 people have to let us know. If you guys
like
want
it.
a Facebook group to where you guys can interact, not just with us, because we'll interact too, but with other listeners.
I'm down. I am down.
To build this community.
And that actually helps you ask questions inside of the group that we can respond to. And if one of your questions has been, is God still there in the midst of our anxiety and depression? You are in the right spot.
Yeah, so anxiety and depression, this is something that I know that I've battled with. I know that you've battled with. And many, many others that have reached out to us have had questions on, or other people that we know have battled with.
You like that transition, though? That was smooth.
I did. That was a very smooth transition.
That's why I'm sitting my arms crossed. I'm like, I'm proud of myself.
I just picked up with it. And I'm like, okay, you're going to pass me the ball. I'm just going to run and
That's
slam
what
it.
I do. I'm just going to toss it to you, homie.
Well, before we dive into it, I want to read a quick quote by Charles Spurgeon, because I know, Mark, how much you love quotes.
And
quotes and
Charles
stats.
Spurgeon. Quotes and stats. I get both?
You're getting both this episode.
I get both.
You're getting both.
And I get me some Spurgeon.
Yes.
Man, take me now, Jesus. I'm a happy man.
All right. So Spurgeon says, fits of depression come over the most of us, which is pretty awesome because I didn't realize he struggled with so much.
I just learned this past Sunday that he struggled with it. Yeah.
And so it's pretty awesome. Usually cheerful as we may be, we must at intervals be cast down. The strong are not always vigorous, the wise not always ready, the brave not always courageous, and the joyous not always happy.
And he worded it in a way only the Prince of Preachers could word it, man.
So let's talk about some statistics of depression.
Okay.
I got some anxiety in here, but it's mostly depression, right?
Okay.
So major depressive disorder affects approximately 17.3 million American adults, or about 7.1% of the U.S. population age 18 and older in a given year. Major depressive disorder is more prevalent in women than in men.
And this is major depression. So is that
major depressive disorder?
So that's different than quote unquote minor depression.
I guess so.
Okay, I'm just legitimately asking, so I don't know.
So this comes from the dballiance.org, which we'll have this link in the show. We'll have all the links in the show notes. We always do.
Yep.
1.9 million children ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with depression.
Wow.
Adults with depressive disorder or symptoms have a 64% greater risk of developing coronary artery disease. Depression is the cause of over 2/3 of the 30,000 reported suicides in the U.S. each year.
That's sad.
For every 2 homicides committed in the United States, there are 3 suicides. The suicide rate for older adults is more than 50% higher than the rate of the nation as a whole. Up to 2/3 of older adult suicides are attributed to untreated or misdiagnosed depression. The lifetime risk of suicide among patients with untreated depressive disorder is nearly 20%. Suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 34, and the fourth leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 35 and 54. From 2001 through 2017, for the total population, the total suicide rate increased 31% from 10.7 to 14 per 100,000 people. So that's a lot of stats, but it just goes to show that there's a lot of people that struggle with depression.
And my question coming out of this is, why the heck are we not talking about this in the church?
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, this is one of the big issues that is going on in our, not just in the church, but in our communities.
Well, if this is the second leading cause of death,
if for every 2 murders, there's 3 suicides.
Why are we not talking? Now, I will say the world has been talking about mental health like crazy lately.
Sure.
But it seems like the church is scared of it.
Right. So what are some most common reasons for anxiety and depression? Now, these are not all the reasons. These are not all the causes.
And these are not our opinions. This is from Medical Journal.
This is just from Everyday Health and from healthline.com. That's where these two.
It's not a medical journal, but
right. I've kind of combined some of the big hitters from both those articles.
Can we skip the third one?
No. Health issues such as chemical imbalances, mental disorders, improper diet and exercise, etc.
Okay.
Medications, caffeine, and that one comes more for anxiety than depression, but it's a big thing. It's a real thing. Skipping meals, negative thinking, financial concerns, parties or social events, conflict, stress, public performance, personal triggers, and abuse. So that's the big hitters for most common for not just depression, but also anxiety.
Yeah, that's interesting, because especially coming out of COVID, a lot of these things have been amplified, I would say, since COVID, with finances and health issues and social structures and just the stress and conflict and spouses.
Different negative thinkings. I mean, just of the state of the world right now with COVID in a pandemic still. Definitely a lot of reasons to have depression and anxiety prevalent in not just America, but in the world.
Yeah, and I think something to note with this too, because and maybe we'll get into this later. A lot of times, it kind of seems like the old way in the church was, if you had these problems, you just needed to have more faith, or you got to get your head out your butt, or you got to make better decisions or whatnot. But a lot of these.
Or you're sinning, and that's what's causing this.
Who sinned, you or your parents? Which we can get into that.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of these things are potentially issues that are outside of our control.
Sure.
Now, obviously, like sometimes anxiety and stress, like, oh man, I just don't have enough money to live, and I'm stressed out. Well, dude, you have an $80,000 truck. Well, duh, you're having stress and issues. Right. Or it's like, it's like, man, I just got all these conflicts, and I can't have all these relationships. Like, yeah, because you're a jerk. Like, there's some things that we can control.
Bad choices.
Yeah, but
sure.
A lot of these things, though, is external weights and pressures that are put on us.
Or medical reasons,
or
such
medical
as
imbalances.
Medical imbalances, or even the way you eat or exercise can cause things like that. Or abuse from your past. That's something that's out of our control. Personal triggers from your past, different medications.
Sometimes just how you're wired.
Right, exactly. And so there's a lot of different things that can cause that beyond that. But yeah, the church definitely does not talk about it. So because the church doesn't talk about it,
we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. And what better way to talk about it than I put in here, time to get personal. So
now, before we get time to get personal, though, do you think it's fair to make a difference right off the bat, though, between mental illness and mental health, like in terms of a chemical imbalance with schizophrenia,
something outside of your control,
or what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm thinking of? Because there's OCD, ADHD, there's schizophrenia, there's bipolar, all these
there's
chemical imbalances.
There's mental illness,
right?
And then there's
things that just cause anxiety and depression.
correct, yeah.
And that affect mental
and I
health.
think that is we're going to talk about ways that people can get help, right? There's definitely things that can help people with those mental problems, and we would always encourage that you go seek medical profession.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where we're going to stand. But before we get too far into that,
yeah.
I know you and I have both struggled, and I don't know if I didn't ask you if you were going to feel comfortable sharing, but I'm going to share. But
100%.
Have you ever struggled with anxiety and depression?
Definitely.
Do you mind sharing a story from it, or?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, yes, I will. No, I don't mind at all. There you go. So I think I've mentioned this on the show, but this is the first time ever in my life recently where I've actually have had anxiety attacks, like waking up in the middle of the night, flipping out, or, all of a sudden it's like my heart literally feels like it's beating outside my chest where I'm like, Beth, just hold me because I'm not okay.
Right.
And some of that comes out of just the stress of life, of having 7 kids. And just to be completely transparent, I have 7 kids, 5 I see full time, 2 I have shared custody over. I don't like the situation of how I have to have this shared custody and the affair and all these different things of my divorce, the stress that comes with that, and the stress of work and the stress of trying to run my own business and company and a new marriage and a house and a job and kids. And I mean, it's a lot of external pressures that in and of themselves are not bad. It just gets really, really heavy to oversee. And that didn't cause depression. That just caused anxiety and having panic attacks and these different things. And I know this is also something that Beth struggles with as well. And so we've had to go through that. But tell you what, man, I've gone through some very depressing seasons in my life, very, very recent. And depressing to the point where it's more of, waking up one day and realizing your entire world has changed because and it wasn't even your choice to have everything changed. It was just, this is someone else made a choice and I have to live with the consequences because of it. Now, I had to choose how I responded to all of it, but it didn't make it easy either, And so dealing with depression specifically, I would say I probably found myself at my lowest, multiple regards. Sometimes as a pastor, I felt very alone and very depressed in the point where I have to put on a show because I'm, paid to be a Christian, paid to be a professional Christian.
And we don't talk about it in the church.
No, and that's why a lot of pastors commit suicide, sadly, is because there's a lot of external weights and pressures, and you feel low, you feel alone. You're like, I'm running on empty. I just need some time with Jesus just to get my crap together, but I still have to lead people to Jesus. And there's a lot of depressing seasons. But I would say when I found myself at my low going, God, what the heck is going on? Are you even there? One was not actually when my dad died, but when my mom got remarried and we got dragged out here to South Bend. And I literally say dragged out here to South Bend. And so, I all of a sudden found myself with a bunch of new siblings that I didn't like. Or just the family culture didn't fit really well. And my stepdad was in, and I'm like, you're not my dad. You're not my dad, so stop trying.
Right.
And then having to deal with all the stuff that came out of that with, stepdad then leaving our family and my mom's high and dry, going, God, where the heck are you? Are you like, not are you real, but it's more like, do you care? And so I went into a very dark place in the 8th grade. In 8th grade, I got to a very dark place going, I don't want to do this anymore. What's the point of living if this is life? I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I don't want to say I was ever suicidal because I don't use that term lightly, but I was at the point where of going, just what the heck is the point of this anymore? And as an 8th grader, I was getting to the point where it's like, who really cares what decisions I make? So I started making a bunch of stupid decisions as an 8th grader. Because it was just, what's the point of doing this? And I eventually realized that the only person I was harming in all this was myself.
Right.
And then, fast forward a little bit later, with the last, I would say, 3-4 years of my life and having to go through all the things that I've gone through, getting yourself to a place where I'm, no longer married. I'm theoretically a part-time dad. I stepped down from my church position, so I'm no longer a pastor. I lost my entire identity in the course of 6 months.
Right.
And then being stripped down to nothing and having to work with a counselor and therapist to rebuild myself to go, who am I? Who am I in Christ? Am I more than my profession? Am I more than a pastor? Am I more than a dad? Am I more than a husband? to be like, yeah, no, I'm a child of God, so my identity needs to be in that. But that didn't make it easy either. And, so through all of that, I made sure I didn't shelter myself. I mean, I still see the same therapist that I've had for the last 3 years. You and I have met consistently for, 2.5, almost 3 years on this podcast.
Right.
We had our small group for a while, but even that, I lost that because that imploded.
Yeah, that dissolved.
that dissolved between, all the stuff that happened with situation in my life and then other people's lives and then COVID. It was just, it was rough on the church family for that. But, I found myself in multiple times going, God, I didn't ask for any of this. This wasn't my choice. Or some things, they were my choice. Now I have to deal with my consequences, sure. But I'm going, God, where, not just where are you, not this never made me question, God, you don't exist.
But where are you right now?
Where are you? And you're supposedly good. And last time I checked, a earthly father gives their kids good gifts, and supposedly you're supposed to give better gifts than an earthly father did. But last time I checked, this is not a good gift. So what the heck?
Right.
And so I found myself at a place where, not that I was angry at God, but literally kind of like Elijah, where, you have these mountaintop experiences, like even at church, I was coming off some really high mountaintop experiences in the church world when all my stuff blew up. And then just sitting there going, seriously, God, where I don't just take me now. I know you're real. I just take me now. What's the point of doing this anymore? Yeah. And that's what happened to Elijah. Right. And so that's where I found myself many times. So I would say my depression and anxiety have been separate. I never really had to deal with anxiety until probably this last year.
Yeah.
But I found myself many times in the place where I asked the question, God, where are you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And we had an episode that we wrote out of my response to a lot of that. And I'm trying, was it finding God in the difficult times? No.
No, that was the one with Jess.
That was with
Browning.
Jess. There was another episode that we did a while back.
We've done Finding Your Identity in Christ. We've done Does My Past Affect My Future, which is episode 1.
So episode 1.
Have we done one?
I think there was one where When You Feel Far from God a while ago.
That's what it is.
And
When
that
we feel far
episode,
from God.
well, I'll have to find it so we can put in the show notes. But that one we wrote out of some of my response from that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my story, man.
But a good thing has come, right? So people are probably like, "Oh man,
I'm pretty sure, Beth, you're a good thing."
Man, but you mentioned a good point that a lot of people think in those situations of, "Man, God, I thought you were a father who gives better gifts than your earthly father," and then now you see, fast forward, like in the time you didn't see it, but fast forward,
right.
Now you've got Beth, you've got 5 beautiful girls that came into your life that you would have never met had it not 100%. Been for everything that went on.
And the podcast has done a lot of growth out of that too. And I've never been at the point where, and Beth gave me permission to speak out of her story in this, because she saw the show and she goes, "You have my full permission to talk about anything you want to talk about."
Right.
Beth, when she was going through a lot of her, because she actually is on medication. She has anti-anxiety meds that she takes, and I'm not on the side of, God, I did all these things for you and look at all the crap I've had to go through. For me, it's more the fact of just, I thought you were good, so why is all this? Whereas part of Beth's story...
It's the story of Job.
Exactly. So part of Beth's story, I don't know if she's gone into this too much, where, she deals with all these hard situations in life, and she's like, God, all I've ever done for you is things for you. So could you return a favor almost? Like, I've done all these things for you, and things are still hard and things don't go right. So why? And feeling almost abandoned.
Yeah.
And so for me, I almost felt that, not that I was abandoned, but that just God kind of disappeared, where I know sometimes for her, and Beth, love you, dear, correct me if I'm wrong, she kind of had this feeling of almost not abandonment, but kind of like when you do all these things for a friend and they never reciprocate, and it's like, what, am I nothing to you? Type thing. Like, I did everything right. I did everything right in life. I followed you to a T, and this is what I get. And I think there's a lot of people out there that feel that too, with their life.
And I think that I don't think there's a Christian out there that hasn't felt that way at some point. And even me, I was like, God, look what I've done.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm going through this.
I don't want to steal all the spotlight. So you tell me your story someday, man.
No, you're fine. I just want to speak to that real fast. Of we have to be careful in that, because if we're doing things just to get things, we're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
And that's an important lesson that I know you've learned over the past 2 years, and that I've been learning over the past 5 years, 6 years. And we'll get into that, I guess, right now. I mean, we've talked about several other things. Recently I've had a lot of anxiety. woke me up in the middle of the night, mainly about my health, though. We had to sell our house because of the mold, and I got mold toxicity, and that's caused major and I had COVID, which has caused major breathing issues with me, a lot of health issues with me that I never had before.
And I would say health issues that don't make sense.
That don't make any sense, but I've been in and out of. I've seen so many doctors been poked and prodded so much over the past year and a half, 2 years that it's unreal.
And you've even gone up to Mayo, right?
Well, I haven't gone yet, but I'm going up here soon. So it's been a journey of not understanding. Again, thinking like, hey, God, I've done all this for you. And ever since basically once we started the podcast is when I started having major health declines.
It's true.
And so,
actually,
I've had to think, okay, is this just the enemy trying to keep me from doing something that, God, you want me to do? And is this a test? Is going through all this stuff? Like, am I in a Job situation here where you're trying to prove to Satan, or you're just trying to see if I'm going to remain faithful, or are you working something out in me?
Or is it just the natural consequences of sin that we're dealing with?
Just tons of questions that have come up in my mind. But those haven't caused me as much anxiety as just like waking up in the middle of the night being breathless because I tore out carpet in the house we're currently in one night, and it affected my body that much to where I could not breathe. Ended up having to go to the emergency room that night.
Oh, I remember that.
And it was just lots of sleepless nights and days, and this has been going on for 2 years now, of just absolute health decline, which has caused anxiety, not so much depression, because I have held on to hope in Christ. But
it's caused a lot of stress.
A lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. Now, I have battled depression, as I talked about in episode 1 of this podcast, the podcast that launched the ship.
Podcast to rule them all.
Does my past affect my future? I in that episode I talked about all the struggles that I had growing up in an abusive household, and that caused so much depression for me growing up in an abusive household that I regularly thought about suicide on a regular basis and dealt with depression and just hated myself and hated my image and didn't know who. And this is a Christian home I grew up in.
Yeah. Now, is that because of what people said about you, or is that kind of?
It was the situation. It's,
okay.
I was, my parents were together. There was a lot of fighting going on between them, physical abuse between them, which then led into affairs. So I dealt with that. And then my mom married my stepdad, who was abusive to us kids, to him leaving, and then my parents getting remarried, and then my own dad being abusive to us. And I've talked about how he's grown, and I hope he doesn't get offended if he ever listens to this, that I've telling his story, but he's grown so much since then anyways. I don't think he cares. It's just part of his past as well.
Right.
But the abuse that I took regularly for him, or the abuse that I saw, or the things that I had to witness in my own house that are still, even to this day, I dream about and wake up in a cold sweat from my childhood. But it caused depression because I regularly thought suicide because I didn't see another way out, and it was just hopelessness of I'd rather end it because I don't think I'll make it to my adulthood to get out, and I think my mom's gonna die or my sister's gonna die because of the abuse that's going on in the household. And so it caused a lot of depression in my life growing up, which led into poor choices, which led into more poor choices, which led into depression. And really, I've only really been out of the depression but for about 6 years, 7 years, something like that. Shortly after Janelle and I met, and I started getting back into church and really seeking out God, has the depression lifted. And so it's really only been about 6, 7 years that I've really not felt depressed from my childhood. Earliest memory is about 8 years old. First time I thought about suicide.
8 years old?
8 years old. I thought about suicide.
Second grade.
Yep. My stepfather.
You know how hard that is to think? Because I have a daughter who's 8 years old now.
My stepfather grabbed me by the hair and was dragging me downstairs as I was beating against these hardwood stairs in our old house because he didn't like that I told him that he wasn't my real dad. And the abuse we took from him. That was the very first time I remember thinking I just need to end it because I just don't see I don't have any hope. So I understand depression and I understand anxiety, and you understand depression and anxiety. And it's a real thing that affects people's lives.
It's a real thing that everyone has a different story.
Sure.
And this is something I talked to my mom about recently, actually, is the fact of she point blank asked me, she goes, it seems like more and more people, and for right or wrong, it seems like more and more people are being diagnosed with some form of depression and some form of just mental health problem.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, is it the fact that we were just oblivious 50, 60 years ago? Was it a different culture? I mean, now there was a culture of, suck it up and do what you're supposed to do. And so I think there was a lot of issues that came out of that people didn't talk about.
There was a lot of abuse that was never talked about.
Right, because that was just the way it was.
Right.
And millennials, we're called the snowflake generation because we just care about wimpy things and our feelings and whatnot. Right. And God created us with emotions and feelings, and Jesus even felt. I mean, he cried when Lazarus died.
Sure.
And so he felt the emotions that came along with it. And that's the thing, is the fact of, Jesus understands our emotions, because the Bible even talks about, what's that passage where, not the fact of that he was tempted in the same way that we were, but he found himself in the form of a man, and therefore he has felt everything that we have ever felt, which makes me think, okay, did Jesus ever feel anxious, or did Jesus ever struggle with bouts of depression? Because I don't necessarily think anxiety and depression are sins.
No, I think he dealt with anxiety in the Garden of Gethsemane before he went to the cross, which was part of his prayer.
You only sweat blood when you are at that extreme level.
That's what I'm saying. So I think there was definitely some anxiety there of, Lord, if it be your will that this cup passes from me, I mean, let it be.
And we were that
my will,
so nicely. Where's the fact of, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what.
If there's any other way, that'd be nice.
Right. But I'll do what you need me to do.
Right.
So,
and that's what I'm saying. So the fact of Jesus knows our struggles, he knows our pains, he knows our burdens, because he felt the same things that we felt.
And we'll get into that a little bit more of some of the promises that God does give to us. But before we go there, Mark, besides you and I, do you know of anybody?
Beth is one where, and I'll just say this because she is one. If you do struggle with certain things and you want to talk with someone, Beth is always open.
Yeah.
Just find her on Instagram at Tribe of Hyde. That's not an ad. That's just a literal who she is. And so Beth is one where she shares openly about the fact, and she's not a mental health advocate.
Sure.
It's more of just, she's very honest with who she is and the struggles that she has. But yeah, no, I mean, being a youth pastor, I have seen so many teens come through with mental health, for lack of a better word, issues.
Right.
In the fact of, you got some things you got to work on. You probably, like I've even told different teens in different colleges, you need to go see a therapist. You need to go see a psychologist, because you're not okay. You need to process some of the stuff out. It's not okay to keep it in. And so, my time as both a youth pastor and then also dealing with adults in the associate pastor role, and just now is just, knowing so many different types of people. I don't think there's anyone that I have ever met, the older I get, that can admit they have never ever felt, the lows of humanity, or the struggles of, how are we going to pay off these med bills? How are we going to do this? And I think it's more of how we choose to respond out of that.
Yeah, but I think there's a different level between just having lows and then
actually
depression.
Being depressed.
Depression is like an extended time.
Yeah, no,
of the low.
So to fully answer the question, I look at my brother, who, to be honest with you, he should not be here.
Sure.
He had an ulcer that ruptured. Every ounce of blood in his body is from infusions. They're not from him.
Right.
And, I think that's a major blessing, and a blessing that God gave him to be able to have that miracle of life.
Right.
And I've had to see him bout that, of being in the hospital for months on end. And you hear of these stories of COVID patients that are doing the same thing. My brother had to walk through that as well alone.
Right.
And so watching him go through that depression, and then looking at some of my other students who I've known have struggled with suicide and have struggled with mental health, and not just like the mental health, go get a happy light for some vitamin D, but some serious, we got to work, like you're not okay. We need to come alongside you and just love the snot out of you. So I've seen so many people come through either my office doors or through my life that are just, they struggle. They full-fledged struggle.
Sure. And I know personally people in my life, I actually had two friends that have committed suicide because of depression. They just couldn't take it anymore, and just ended it all. And I have a very close family member who I won't say how I'm related to them because of private reasons. I haven't asked permission, and but they tried to commit suicide and almost didn't make it. And it was a scary time because I love this person deeply, and I would never want to see that happen to them. And you try to reach out, and they kind of reject it because I'm a Christian, and the people, my family doesn't tend to like to be around me or Janelle because we're Christians, and we don't even have to say anything. It's just the light that exudes from us. They just don't like to be around because they think that we're goody two shoes, even though we never say anything. We just live for Christ, which that can happen. So yeah, I definitely know multiple people that have been depressed, have had anxiety, have been on medication for depression, for anxiety, have attempted suicide, have committed suicide. It's just so prevalent. And I'm not even just talking about worldly people. I'm talking about Christians also that have had to deal with this stuff. Just even outside of like our small little group that we know together, there's just so many people that have had struggles and bouts with it. And even if you go on the way back train to earlier episodes, the 3 interviews with Paul Lindgren, where Paul Lindgren talks about his story of affair and his wife leaving him and all that stuff,
and then another
and
affair,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he talks about the bouts of depression that he went through all that. And this guy was a strong Christian in the faith, going through all this and dealt with it and had to see a therapist and and had to deal with that. And he talks about all that in those 3 episodes. So it's something that's very prevalent in the church, but nobody ever talks about.
Well, I think it's because it's scary to talk about.
It is scary. Well, and I don't think people understand or really know how to deal with it. And we'll get into different ways of how we can help others that are dealing with it, and how we can seek help ourselves.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But before we do that, it's a dark episode. It really is. It's a heavy topic to talk about. And so I want to bring a few scriptures into it of some of the promises that God gives to people that may be struggling with anxiety or depression.
Yeah, bring some light to it.
There's so many scriptures. I think in all there was over 60 scriptures that I could have chose from of just that talked about just different things on how God views us and all this. And I just selected a few. So Psalm 34:17-18 says, "The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and rescues them from their troubles. The Lord is near the brokenhearted. He saves those crushed in spirit."
That was my verse when I was going through all this stuff.
And it's such a powerful verse. Just remember, and again, you may not feel it in those times of darkness, but he's there, and this is how he views you, and this is a good thing to try to remember in those times. Sorry, I've got the LaCroix burpees. Matthew 11:28-30. "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." Psalm 40:1-3. "I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me and heard my cry for help. He brought me up from a desolate pit, out of the muddy clay, and set my feet on a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear, and they will trust in the Lord." Man, just David and these Psalms you could see the struggle that he had and how God's just his promises pour out on him. Psalm 94:18-19. "If I say my foot is slipping, your faithful love will support me, Lord. When I am filled with cares, your comfort brings me joy." Philippians 4:6-7. "Don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." 2 Corinthians 1:3-5. "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort." Not the God of a little comfort, but of all comfort. "He comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any kind of affliction." So he comforts us so we can comfort others. "Through the comfort we ourselves receive from God, for just as the sufferings of Christ overflow to us, so also through Christ our comfort overflows." So is God around in our depression? Well, I think the answer is yes, and here's 3 quick verses to remind us of that. 1 John 4:15-17 says, "Whoever confesses that Jesus is the Son of God, God remains in him and he in God. And we have come to know and to believe the love that God has for us. God is love, and the one who remains in love remains in God, and God remains in him. In this love is made complete with us, so that we may have confidence in the day of judgment, because as he is, so also are we in this world." So if we love God, God is in us. He ain't going nowhere. Romans 8:38-39. "For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other thing created will be able to separate us from the love of God. That is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Psalm 55:22. "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you." We can't sustain ourselves. He will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken.
Yeah. Can I add one more verse to that? Because I know that was the last one.
Go for it.
Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I'll be with you, and the rivers will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, and the flame will not burn you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, and your Savior." Now, in that passage, that's specifically talking to the Israelites.
Sure.
But if we're God's children, he promises to be with us and throughout all of it.
And again, there's over 60 verses, and a lot of them are Psalms or the Old Testament, where God promised his people that he's not going to leave them or forsake them, that he's going to be with them always, even till the end of the age.
Yeah, don't fear, for
Matthew 28. Yeah. So,
yep.
And
then you got all the way to Revelations, where one day he'll come back and make all things new.
Right. So
there's hope in the meantime, there's hope in the future.
So where is God in our depression and anxiety? He's right there with you. So how can we come alongside others that might be struggling with depression or anxiety? We're going to start there first, then we're going to go into how we can seek help for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
This is just a quick 7 things that I thought of, right, as I'm sitting here praying and contemplating this. And one is pray for them. Prayer is the mode that God chooses to work through all things. Is, hey, make your request known to me, and I'll take care of it. So prayer is a big thing. I would always start there. Stay close to them, but allow them space and time. So this is a big thing that I think that people were like, well, I just got to be around them all the time to make sure they don't hurt themselves. And sometimes
when I was going through my crap, I didn't want to be around people all the time.
Right. And that's the big thing, is that sometimes too much is too much. You know what I mean? If you're always on them or always contacting them, checking on them, it's like, it's just too much. And I don't want that near me. You want to be a trusted source to them. You want to say, hey, thinking about you today, I love you, and leave it at that. That requires no response from them. But, every once in a while, just reach out, just try to stay close to them, but also allow them space if they need the space. Remind them of God's promises. We read some of the verses today. For Christians, this is something that we can do. We can remind each other of the promises. Now, beating them over the head with it is probably not a good thing. Again, allow them space, but remind them that you're there, and remind them that God's there. For unsaved, this is a little bit harder to do because they don't know who God is. So his promises mean nothing to them. Number 4, don't try to fix them. Just be there. I don't have to, when you're struggling with depression, I don't have to come and fix your situation.
Just sit there in the mess.
Sometimes you just like Job's friend.
That's like Job.
Job's friends did the best thing they could have done. They just went and sat with him
until they opened their mouth
for days, and then they opened their mouth and screwed up. But for the very first part, they did the best. They just were there. I'm just there with you. I don't have to fix things. I'm just here for you. I'm a shoulder to cry on. I'm an ear to listen. I'm a person to hug. Mm-hmm. I'm just here. Number 5, point them towards professional help. This is something that I think we as fixers, I'm a fixer.
Yep, me too.
We forget to do is point them to help. Whether it's a doctor, if it's a medical imbalance like we talked about earlier, or a therapist, which I know I
see bi-weekly.
You see, and many of others have seen.
Hi, Neil.
Hi, Neil. I've contacted Neil, but I never followed through with it. That's my fault, Neil. I apologize. You can whip me later. Or a pastor, if they're trained, if they're a trained pastor that's trained for these types of things.
Though there is something helpful with having someone speak into your life that literally has zero thing to gain.
Sure.
Or zero, like Neil, for example.
Sure.
It didn't matter what he say or did. He didn't have. I'm trying to think of the word that the terminology that I'm thinking of is the fact of whether I took his advice or not. that was my own choosing.
Right.
It wasn't like if you have a pastor in your life that is invested. Now it's good to have a pastor that is invested in you.
Well, and there's a difference between just a regular pastor and a pastor who's trained in
psychology
in this type of thing, because a pastor who's not trained in it can only take you so far.
Right.
They can do the pray for you, stay close to you, but give you space, remind you of the God's promises, and just be there for you. They can do those first 4 things.
Right.
But they can't do much beyond that, or help you
the psychological.
Right, exactly. Help you dissect why you're feeling this way, and kind of walk you through.
And I think that's where a lot of maybe we'll pause here for a second. I think that's one place that the church tends to fail.
Right.
Because there's a really good friend of mine. She's very open about this, so I can speak into it. But she was diagnosed bipolar recently.
Right.
And as a teenager, she struggled with it. And her youth pastor always said, "Well, apparently your faith is like you just need to have faith. You need to pray more."
Yeah.
And her parents, it's like, it's a question of, well, who sinned, you or your parents type thing. And
which is what the church tends to do.
Right. And you see that in New Testament with the man who was born blind. The disciples like, yo, who screwed up, him or his parents? And Jesus is like,
neither. He was born this way for this time, for this reason.
Right. And my friend who was born bipolar, and there's even, if you look up, Christians and bipolar on the Gospel Coalition, there's someone on there who speaks openly about her story.
Right.
My friend, she's able to use her story to say, you know what? This was done wrong. This is what should have been done.
Right.
But I'm going to use this to continue to talk about Jesus and what he means in my life. So she's using it in a way to bring God glory in that.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think a lot of Christians tend to just say, oh, obviously we need to pray for people, but just pray more about it, have more faith.
Right.
Just fix it. If you truly love God,
right,
then maybe he'll take it away from you. Because I think that's the thing that people get scared about with these verses and these promises, the fact of, oh, but this isn't good enough. It's not helping me psychologically with these things. But we need to hang on to the promises.
But that's the thing. That's the thing, is you're not there throwing verses at them to fix them. It's got to be a reminder. Hey,
right.
I don't like how we were just talking earlier. I don't feel God around. Well, God's around. I'm just letting you know. Though you don't feel him right now, he's there. He's there. He's carrying you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that quick reminder. It's not, I'm going to beat you over the head. Or you lack faith. He's always there for you. We're not saying that. It's just a quick reminder of his promises.
But yeah, so beyond just, being there and listening and being that comfort.
Help them figure out
the help that they need.
Whether it's a doctor, therapist, pastor, whatever, you may not know a doctor or therapist, so point them to a pastor that may know, or seek a pastor out saying, hey, do you know a therapist that or can help these people.
In the same way that if someone is actually sick, you don't just say, well, maybe you need to have a little bit better faith because this is proof of your faith. No.
Not unless you're one of those faith healers.
Goodness. No, but if someone broke their leg, it's not like, oh, just what sin did you do to have your leg broke? Right. Oh, you just need to have more faith. No, go see the stinking doctor, bro, because something's wrong.
Right. So always point them towards professional help. That's number 5. So number 6 is be patient with them. And this is something that some people do well with, some people don't. Some people are very patient, and just this process could take years, could be in a lifetime. If it's a medical depression,
walking through with people can be messy and long.
Yeah, you just got to. It comes back to the gifts of the Spirit, and one of them is patience, and you just have to exuberate that at all times, and just be patient with them, and long suffering, and that's just part of it.
And that's love. That's 1 Corinthians 13, and 1 Corinthians 13 comes out of 1 Corinthians 12, where we're all part of the body to be with each other.
Exactly. So that's part of it. And then number 7 is be faithful to them, and this is so important.
This one didn't cross my mind, so I'm curious.
So be faithful. So during depression and there's times that you may want to just throw your hands up in the air and be like, "There's just no hope.
Screw it and walk
There's
away.
just no hope. You're just going to sit and wallow in your depression and walk." Or you're such an Eeyore. I just can't be around you anymore. And that is the wrong thing to do for them, because that is not loving. You got to be faithful to them. That's part of that long suffering of, hey, I'm just going to love you no matter how long it takes. I'm going to love you through this.
So here's a question then for you.
Sure.
Just thinking through it, because there's back up a little bit. Part of mental health right now, and a common thing you see in mental health, is to cut out people in your life, whether they be family, old friends, whoever, that cause you a lot of mental harm and anguish. I have a friend of mine who, both of them, they literally cut out both sets of parents because both sets of parents were, abusive, and they still have issues, and they're not okay people. So they're like, we want our kids to not experience this, and that's a choice they made for their mental health. So when I see be faithful to them, though, at what point do you have someone who's just those friends who are just the woe is me and the complainer and the this and this and this, and at some point you're like, I can't do this anymore because it's literally causing me to get dragged down into it as well. Because, you see in the Bible, if someone is, now, I'm not saying this is a sin. I'm saying if someone's sinning, you rebuke lest you fall into that same sin as well. At what point do you, as I'm not saying this is you, but I'm walking alongside you, and you're dragging me into this, which now is affecting my relationship with my wife and my kids, and because of all the weight that you're putting on me with your depression, and not your depression, that's not the right word, but the struggles you're having, not saying they're legitimate or illegitimate. At what point do you, though, say, look, you either get professional help or we're done? Because is there a point, though, at which you say, I'm not saying God helps those who help themselves, but if you're just going to sit there and wallow in something, and normally I guess this comes back to, I'm processing this out verbally. A lot of times those are people that put themselves into their own messes, and that not life is just hard and I'm not okay and I need someone with me. At some point it's like, you're the master of your own demise. At what point do you walk away? I don't know if that question even is pertinent to this conversation now that I've processed it out loud a little bit.
Well, I'll try to attempt to speak to it.
Yeah.
It's not the best analogies, but I'm going to give them anyways.
All right, go for it. I'm going to listen and learn.
When you were talking about it, I was thinking of the Good Samaritan.
Okay.
Right? The Samaritan walked by the Jewish person who they were always at odds, right? And it was burdensome socially, financially, physically to take him and care for him. And not only did he do that, but he said, hey, whatever cost, whatever the burden be, I will be back to take care of the burden.
Right. Now, the Samaritan, he was destroyed by things he couldn't control, The
Samaritan was destroyed by things he couldn't control. You talk about the Jewish person?
I'm sorry, the Jewish person, because Samaritan took care of the Jewish person.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm like, wait, what?
Wow, that was a new Bible story.
I'm like,
never heard that one before.
What are you reading out of the message? No. Sorry.
No, keep going.
The LeBron James Bible or what?
I don't know, man. The coffee's wearing off, I guess.
So, yeah, he wasn't necessarily the cause of his own demise. How was he? He was jumped and robbed, right? Sometimes that's depression. Sometimes things happen to you and you get depressed. And so do we become like the priest and just walk by? Or do we stop and say, hey, no matter what the costs, I'm going to help this brother out?
Because you would want someone to do that for you.
Again,
right?
Jesus did not come for the healthy. He came for the sick, right? And depression is a form of, it's a sickness, but it's not, I don't want to be like, oh, well, you're, mentally sick or something like that, because it's not always that. It's just sometimes
the pressures of life.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just the burdens. Sometimes it's the situation that you didn't ask for or put yourself in, but it's brought you. Sometimes it is. And at that point, I think that we're called to be long-suffering. I see if they reject the message of Christ. That's the only time I've seen Jesus himself say, well, they've rejected me, so I've dusted off my feet and walked on. Out of his own town, he was rejected. But I don't see anywhere else in Scripture where Christ ever was just like, I'm done with you because you're too much work. He was always long-suffering. His disciples were always long-suffering. How corrupt was the Corinthian church that Paul has to write a letter to them about their corruptness? And that was not the first time. He wrote supposedly he wrote 4 letters or 5 letters. I mean,
and who knows how many visits?
Long-suffering, that comes from...
Love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy or boast.
And that's in where? 1 Corinthians, right?
1 Corinthians 13.
So he's telling them, hey, look, I'm being, you guys are the thorn in my side. We don't know what that really was for Paul, right? But there was some sort of long-suffering that had to take place with whatever was going on, whatever burden he was having to carry. And I think that that's what we're supposed to be, that no matter what situation, we suffer through with those who we call brother, who we say we love.
So to not rehash them, but to revisit them. So how should we come alongside someone who's not us, but they are struggling with depression, anxiety, not really sure
I'm gonna
what
just
to do.
run through them real
Let's run
fast.
through them again. I'll shut up.
Number one, pray for them. Number two, stay close to them, but allow space and time. Number three, remind them of God's promises. Number four, don't try to fix them, just be there. Number five, point them towards professional help. Number six, be patient with them. Number seven, be faithful to them. So now what do we do? What should I do if I feel depressed, anxious, or suicidal?
Bring it close to home.
Talk to a loved one. Call a friend, seek professional help from a pastor or a therapist. If you're thinking suicide, I encourage you, I even wrote it down, and I'm going to say it right now. Call the suicide hotline, 1-800-273-8255. That's the suicide prevention lifeline. I'm going to put the link to their website where you can chat anonymously. Thank you. Chat with somebody online. So you don't have to give them your name or any of your information, but you can just chat with them online. If you don't feel like talking on the phone, we're going to put that in the show notes. So if you're feeling that way, I encourage you to reach out to them. Reach out to a friend if you're thinking, hey, I just need somebody to come sit with me right now. I would say suicide is never the answer. I would say you may feel like it's hopeless, but it's not. There's always hope, always hope, always hope. And there's always somebody that loves you.
Mm-hmm.
And in this moment, I know it's hard, but think about that person and what it would do to them to lose you.
But not even that, because I don't want to say, live your life because there's someone else.
No,
but live
no.
your life because God loves you too.
Yeah, but
know?
If you're struggling with depression, you may be struggling to find somebody that you think that loves you or feeling loved. But do you love? And if you love, what would it do to the people that you love?
Right, because you see these pastors commit suicides, and they had young kids and wives, and for some reason, their battle with mental health and depression and anxiety got the best of them.
Yeah.
And now this wife and these kids have to deal with that. Yeah. I'm not saying deal, that's not the right answer, but they have to live with the reality that they lost their dad.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's a hard thing. It could even just be a coworker and what that does to a coworker or to a neighbor. You don't know. You don't know because you're gone. But I've seen enough of the destruction from the couple of people that I know that have followed through with that I can tell you that's not the answer. It's not. And you are loved. And Mark and I are always here. 574-400-5352. Shoot us a text. Say, I need to talk right now. And we will call you day or night. Somebody will call you.
We'll do it. Yeah. I'm like, if
somebody
we're awake, we'll do our best.
I keep my phone by my bed. If I look over and see a text like that, I'll call you.
I like it.
You are loved by us, and you are loved by God. And we at RTC are here for you. I mean, we're here for you. But we don't claim to be professionals either, and you need to seek professional help.
Yep.
And the start of that is to call that suicide prevention hotline, 1-800-273-8255. And they can help you get the help that you need in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to read one quick thing from Focus on the Family, and then I got a couple quotes to remember God's faithfulness. And
I like it. Then we'll close
and
her
then
out.
We'll just, since we're at an hour.
Did you almost say dismiss?
No.
It sounded like you almost said, and then we'll dismiss.
Well, maybe we will. So they had a couple points, 3 bulletins of things that we can do when we're dealing with depression, reject, guilt, and it's called Embrace the Cure. It says, at times, depression can relate to emotions that have been ignored or pushed away for years. Be willing to face them through Christ's strength. As Matthew 5:4 says, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Number 2, though not advisable in every situation, medication may provide needed physical help for people struggling with depression. Talk to a doctor about it. Number 3, reaching out for Christian counseling can provide support, help you address underlying causes of your depression, and help you develop a plan of action. And again, a therapist can do that for you as well, whether it's a Christian therapist, Neil, or just somebody that can walk alongside you during this.
Yeah, and I think something that would be helpful too is removing the stigma around depression and anxiety, because let's be honest, we all deal with it,
Yeah.
you know, and I think a lot of times people are ashamed and scared to speak up and talk. Now, sometimes
Don't be
because,
ashamed.
because, you know, certain pastors preach very poorly about it.
Yep.
Like,
Well, and you and I have both said, even to this day, I still struggle with anxiety. I'm sure you do. I mean, it's not a shameful thing. It's not.
no, it's something that we all go through. And that's not an excuse of, oh, we all go through it, so it's okay. It's the fact of, no, we're all broken people who need Jesus.
Exactly.
But the fact of, you know, sometimes it takes a humble pill to say, I'm not okay. Sometimes it takes, you know, just removing the stigma and the shame to say, I'm seriously not doing okay right now.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yep.
It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there.
Right, exactly. So I want to read 2 quick quotes, and then if you've got any, that'll be my last final thoughts.
I'd say let's do the 2 quotes and go right into fun facts with Fuller,
and
man.
then we'll try to do a fun fact.
We'll try to do a fun fact after this one.
So God doesn't want us to be consumed with worry and anxiety. Instead, he wants us to turn our worries over to him and to trust him for the future. That comes from Billy Graham, the great
Billy Graham.
This next one comes from Charles Stanley, my boy Charles. And he says, as you walk through the valley of the unknown, you will find the footprints of Jesus both in front of you and beside you. So he's walking ahead of you, making sure the path is clear, and walking beside you, being with you through it all. And so just remember those couple of things.
Time for Fun Facts with Fuller.
This is a sombering
I know, man.
episode
I'm just
that was
kind
like heavy. It's very
Yeah.
heavy. And it's hard to go into a fun fact, but we cannot disappoint.
I don't even want to talk anymore.
Well, you're going to have to talk. Dadgummit, you do the outro.
That's true. That's true. All right, boss. What
All
you
right.
got for the fun fact to close this episode?
So the fun fact of today is, did you know that there's a man whose final resting place is on the moon?
No.
So
actually.
the final resting place of Dr. Eugene Shoemaker is the moon. The famed U.S. Geological Survey astronomer trained the Apollo astronauts about craters, but never made it into space. Mr. Shoemaker had wanted to be an astronaut, but was rejected because of medical problems. His ashes were placed on board the Lunar Prospector spacecraft before it was launched on January 6, 1998. NASA crashed the probe into a crater on the moon in an attempt to learn if there was water on the moon or not.
Huh. Now, is it the fact of it was supposed to crash?
Yes, it was an intentional crash to
To
a
see
crater,
if they can get into the core of the.
to see if there was
So
any
his
water.
ashes literally are embedded into the
yeah,
moon.
it just because he taught them about craters too. So he taught the Apollo astronauts about craters, so they crashed it into a crater.
Let's be honest. If there's a way to go, man,
Out with the blaze of glory.
that's a good fun fact, my friend.
Another good fun fact.
That is another good fun fact. You know what's another good fun fact?
What's that, Mark?
We are 2 real dudes who want to have real conversations with our RTC fam.
That is
You know,
correct.
we always say this, you know, Instagram, Facebook, those are 2 fantastic ways to reach us at Real Talk Christian Podcast. Another great way is by email, realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com, or our phone number / text message 574-400-5352.
You got it, buddy.
Yes. And if you forgot everything that I just said, that's okay. Just go to the show notes and you can get the links for all of that, or go to realtalkchristianpodcast.com. Here's the deal. If you're new and you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm not like, let's be honest, dude, we have a huge arsenal of a library.
We do.
Like
it's
it's
massive.
It is a massive library of content. And the fact that some people have listened to hundreds of hours
Well,
of us
this is
still
100.
baffles me.
This is episode 133, I believe, and that's not including the bonus content.
That's true. And I think we're gonna have an interview before this that we're recording way after recording that we might
Yes,
slide
probably.
in.
So it might be 134. I'm not
So
sure.
we have well over 130. I mean, we have well over 140 hours of content. You might be thinking, guys, I don't know where to start. If you go to the website, scroll right below what's called the hero image, by the way,
Yes.
the main part where you land. There are some really quick sections of where you want to start. So if you want to, I want to know basics about Christianity, basics about family and dating and relationships. You
Right.
know, There's 7 different topics there that you can click where it shows you specific episodes related to that specific topic for you to get started, just to get, hey, quick answers to quick life questions that you have. Or,
and if you really enjoy the podcast, just start at episode 1 and be a rewinder.
There you go. Or if you're really confused, just click the search button on the website and you can actually search and it'll pull up all the episodes related to that search.
Or you could just click the listen button and say, what's the list of episodes, and just start scrolling.
I love it. But hey, just like we've already said, if you listen over on Apple Podcasts, we would love it, and we would be honored if you left us a review and a rating. Spotify, just a rating. All those other places, I don't know. Just tell us that you listen. That would be absolutely amazing. But before we let these beautiful people go, Fuller, is there anything else we got to cover? Or did we cover it all, my friend?
Well, if you don't want to leave us a review, but you still want to reach out, we're always available for questions. You can either email us, DM us. You can reach out through text. You can call us. We may answer, we may not.
All the things.
Everything. Just all the things. So
just hit us up.
I encourage you to always reach out to us. We talked about if 2 people get a hold of us and want a Facebook group, we'll put a Facebook out. Maybe I'll throw that out on Instagram before this episode ever airs. So maybe it already exists. So if so, go ahead and join our Facebook group and start the conversations with the rest of the RTC community.
I love it. But hey, guys, we love you guys. We're thankful for you all. Thanks again for joining us for another installment of Real Talk Christian Podcast. But until next time,
take it easy.